4 years ago, on June 12, 2016, at Pulse Dance Club in Orlando, Florida, a popular LGBT nightclub, 49 people were shot and killed by a single assailant. 50 others were injured in what has been called the worst mass shooting in U.S. history. This attack was fueled by hatred against the LGBTQ plus community, the community representing lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and several other members of sexuality and gender identity. And to pour salt on the wounds of the members affected, this happened during the month of June, which the US recognizes as Pride Month for LGBT citizens. However, discrimination against same-sex couples and different gender identities isn't limited to the events in the US. It's existed since ancient Israel, where they were written as prohibited in the Bible. And throughout the Middle Ages, these ideals were strictly enforced by the Christian kingdoms across Europe. Anyone so much as suspected of being within a same-sex relationship, or if they did not dress according to the gender they were born with, they were subjected to a variety of punishments. These punishments were including but not limited to torture, public shaming, excommunication, and public execution. The term faggot refers to the burning sticks of wood that men suspected of being gay would burn upon. However, after World War II, the interest in human rights began to resurface in the aftermath of horrifying discrimination against European Jews by the Nazi Party. In addition to the 6 million Jewish lives lost, members of the LGBT community were sentenced to these death camps as well. As human rights resurfaced, the question of equality for the multiple members of the LGBT community began to pop up in the minds of the UN and the Human Rights Council. After all, marriage equality and LGBT protections do not exist in every country, and under the worst circumstances, members of the community can face horrible treatment almost identical to the Middle Ages. Internationally, the UN has deemed that LGBT members are very much included in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and to violate their natural rights is a violation of everything that it stands for. It states that discrimination on the basis of sex is just as illegal as discrimination based on race, color, or religion. Currently, the US has only limited protections for LGBT. Despite being a major power in the world, it shows very little interest in the national protection of LGBT citizens, such as including them in the Civil Rights Act. In fact, according to a 2019 map done by ILGA World, Mexico guarantees constitutional protections for LGBT citizens, while Canada guarantees more broad protections for them. Only 11 countries in the world guarantee constitutional protections for the LGBT. 55 have broad protections, 75 have employment protections but nothing else, 8 have uneven or limited protections, including the US, 55 have no protections for LGBT citizens, but no explicit laws against them, and the remaining 70 countries from the map have anti-LGBT laws ranging from de facto criminalization to the death penalty. However, social issues are far from the only thing facing the community. Generally, people tend to think about the broad discrimination of LGBT communities, such as physical or verbal abuse against them individually. But this is far from the only factor affecting the lives of same-sex couples and those with differing genders. Domestically speaking, LGBT members can be denied employment, housing, fair medical treatment, and even access to credit. In fact, some countries and states don't allow couples to apply for marriages or adoptions at all. Systematic discrimination leads to the impotence on healthcare rights, power of attorneys, and lots of other rights that heterosexual and cisgender people take for granted. And this discrimination isn't just morally negative, it has bad effects for the economy as well. In a report done by UCLA's Williams Institute, the report states that LGBT discrimination leads to a less productive workforce, with employers having to decide between losing the talent they need or accepting a member of the LGBT community. Additionally, discrimination can lead to health disparities, meaning a higher cost of social safety nets and therefore higher healthcare costs. Depending on how early discrimination starts in an LGBT person's life, it has a whole other range of negative effects. Discrimination against LGBT youth can lead to children dropping out of school for being bullied. Approximately 40% of homeless young people on the streets of large US cities identify with the LGBT. And even more tragically, LGBT youth are 4 times more likely to contemplate suicide. while transgender youth specifically are 10 times more likely compared to the general population. One NGO working tirelessly on the issue of LGBT protections and rights is Human Rights Watch. They conducted a massive report on several countries in 2018, with a few documented events from 2017, including both positive reforms from progressive countries like Canada and Germany, while discrimination and mass arrests continue in the Middle East and other conservative countries. Stonewall International has also published a PDF detailing how the UN's goal to end poverty by 2030 will not happen unless more serious actions are taken against governments punishing LGBT citizens. This includes them being barred from higher education, discriminatory medical practices, and excluding lesbians from women's rights campaigns. However, IGOs and NGOs cannot do all of this alone. Countries won't change the laws without direct input from their people. They need individuals to take action. So what can one person do to help? Well, if you have the time and money, please donate to organizations like Human Rights Watch and Stonewall International, which both heavily support LGBT rights. And if you want to donate more specifically for LGBT youth, please consider the Trevor Project, which is a crisis intervention program for teenagers in the LGBT community. In addition to that, a more simple way of helping is by supporting LGBT businesses that you approve of. Visit businesses that have the iconic rainbow-colored flag out in front, or restaurants or clubs that have the same flag hanging outside. Lastly, and most importantly, please contact your senators and representatives. If there is a vote on a law that protects the community, or if there's one that will put another impedance on their rights, you need to call your senator or representative and reaffirm their support of LGBT rights. Boiling it all down to the basic elements, the LGBTQ+ community has been discriminated against for centuries because of strictly conservative and religious rulings. In the modern era, this includes not being able to access the most basic needs like housing, medical treatment, credit, or at the worst levels, being arrested and executed for being gay. This isn't just an important moral issue, as the UN recognizes marriage equality as a human right, but economically, countries are sacrificing hardworking individuals when they need the workforce. Individuals should also care for their LGBT family and friends, as members of the community struggle from higher suicide rates. The best thing for members of the public to do is to support pro-LGBT businesses and organizations like the Trevor Project and continue to validate LGBT members young and old. So why does this all matter to me? Why did I dedicate so much time to one simple project on an issue that could take years to solve? Well, it's because I am a member of the LGBTQ+ community, with all of these issues eventually impacting me if nothing else is done. I am dating a beautiful transgender boy named Gideon, and I very much want to spend the rest of my life with him. I'm willing to take the risk that I may not be able to get a home or a job in some states, and that my very life could be at risk against violent individuals, but that won't stop me from loving him. I'm moving to Georgia in July of 2020, where there is absolutely no protections for LGBT individuals. But I'm doing it anyway because the best education I found is in Savannah, Georgia, at SCAD. Being in the community doesn't stop me from being as normal as I can be. Everyone in global studies has seen me from elementary to high school. Simply having a relationship hasn't stopped me from fitting in, and it certainly won't stop me now.